Two trends dominate the world of motoring in 2021: compact SUVs and EVs. This is 2-in-1, your automotive equivalent of Head & Shoulders, the Mercedes-Benz EQA. I discovered how good those 2-in-1 shampoos are when I hit 40, and my partner had to adjust my hair care routine so I don't end up with a bald spot on top of my head. Perhaps this metaphor is not exactly fitting when talking about cars, so let's crack on with the review, shall we?
The Mercedes-Benz EQA is an electric version of the popular GLA compact SUV. This EV is offered in front-wheel drive form, like this 190 horsepower EQA 250, as well as an all-wheel drive version, as the 228 horsepower EQA 300 and the 292 horsepower EQA 350. Yes, I know the model numbers and power output don't make sense, but maybe Mercedes is taking lessons from Audi. Regardless of the power output, the EQA has a declared WLTP range of between 400 and 430 kilometers and 66.5 kWh batteries. By the way, the batteries for the EQA, EQB, as well as the PHEV C-Class and E-Class are made in Poland. Are there any visible differences versus the internal combustion engine GLA? First and foremost, if you look under the bonnet, there is no engine, only an electric motor. Usually there is also some sort of a plastic cover, but this has magically disappeared between media tests. The front is all rounded off with a smooth panel where the grille would normally be. Air intake to cool whatever components need cooling is in the bottom part of the bumper, and this smooth top part helps with aerodynamics. That's important if you want to road trip your EV.
Other noticeable external changes are in the back, like this light bar going here across the tailgate, just like in the bigger EQC. And differences inside? Let's start with the boot.
At 340 liters, the EQA boot is slightly smaller than in the A-Class. There is some flat storage under the floor, but rather for emergency triangle than for charging cables. For a city car, this is okay. Regular GLA has between 385 liters boot capacity in the PHEV version to 335 liters in the petrol version. It may also have a sliding rear seat, which the EQA doesn't have. The backrest splits 40-20-40, so between two rear passengers you can carry some longer items. Merc's baby EV SUV doesn't have the most comfortable rear passenger space due to the batteries under the floor. Adults will not have good thigh support. There is only one USB port, but at least there are cup holders in the armrest and door pockets are okay.
When reviewing some EVs, I mentioned this problem that you get into a car that looks like a relatively big SUV, but you end up sitting like in a sedan. It's because of batteries in the floor. Now, the batteries obviously make the floor thicker. In the Mercedes, the engineers managed to design the battery pack in a way that it ends under the front seats, and as a result, the floor in the front is about 5 centimeters lower than in the back. Okay, perhaps if the battery was extended all the way across the footwells, like in the Ioniq 5 or the EV6 or the VW EVs, the EQA would have better range, but at least here the driver and the front passenger are comfortable.
The EQA cockpit looks mostly the same like in all compact Mercedes cars, starting with the A-Class and going up to the GLB. You can check out my reviews of these cars, links in the description. Here there is an additional ambient lighting in front of the passenger. Two displays are separated with a black stripe behind the steering wheel. The driver display has 3 themes from classic to sport. Everything on this display is controlled with a touchpad and some buttons on the left side of the steering wheel. Fortunately, for now Mercedes didn't change the steering wheel in its compact models. The new touch buttons in the C, E and S class are a disgrace, but it seems all car makers want to make their physical interface crap so that people will start talking to their cars.
Hey Mercedes.
How can I help?
Tell me a joke.
Why should you never eat a clock? It's too time consuming.
Like you need a car to tell you corny jokes, watch me on YouTube. The central display can be controlled with buttons on the right side of the steering wheel, with buttons and touchpad on the center tunnel, as well as with touch on the touch screen itself. And you can talk to the car if you have active Mercedes Me services. Under the armrest is decent-sized storage with 2 USB-C ports, another USB-C port and a 12-volt socket are next to the cup holders. This is the USB port in which you have to plug your phone in to get Android Auto. Wouldn't it make more sense to use the armrest storage rather than to have the phone and the cables mess up the cockpit? By the way, the press car doesn't seem to have Android Auto. As far as I know, it's an option that can be downloaded. Probably the car was configured in a hurry, with the chip shortage and all that. The glove box is decent size and the door pockets are deep and large. I like compact Mercedes cockpits. I think they didn't get old and I'm ready for the large screen evolution like in the C and S class, except for when it comes to cleaning fingerprints from the displays.
Let's start with how's the EQA to drive. Around the city, it's a brilliantly uninvolving, stress-free runabout. You get in, you press a button, you put the car in gear, and boom, or rather whoosh, you're on your way. You don't even notice it's an EV until you realize how quiet it is. It's when you start playing with the paddle shifters, you realize they actually control regenerative, difficult word, braking. And regenerative braking is good for regenerating some energy. And you don't have to use the brakes, which is good when it comes to keeping the running costs down.
Which is not to say this car is cheap to run, and I'm not talking about fast charging costs. While picking up the press car, I was made aware of a number of little scratches and bruises around the car, mainly involving the alloys and the tires. It seems that it's easy to cut the tires on some of the holes in the road. It should come as no surprise as the EQA weighs over 2 tons, some 500 kilograms more than the GLA, so it's easy to damage the wheels on potholes. And I'm recording this in autumn, before the spring asphalt disintegration. That's when I destroyed a wheel on the Honda E and the review was delayed for a couple of weeks. It's a problem with EVs in general, so choose your path carefully. The extra mass can also be felt on bumpier roads more than in lighter cars. Otherwise, the EQA is a pleasant car to drive, just go easy on the fun pedal. The EQA 250 may do 0 to 100 km per hour in 8.9 seconds, according to Mercedes, because I checked and I got 8.2, but with 375 Nm of torque available all the time, the front wheels struggle for traction. By the way, the EQA 250 can tow up to 750 kg. The all-wheel drive models can tow 1800 kg. The maximum weight you can put on the tow hook is 80 kg. I guess it makes more sense to get the EQA 300.
And what about the range? Well, this track is around 200 kilometers away from where I live, and about half of the journey is up a slight incline. The car charged overnight to full and I preconditioned it. I was driving in eco mode and according to the speed limit, so no more than 120 kilometers per hour on the dual carriageway. I got 24 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers and the remaining range was around 100 kilometers. The EQA should do around 400 kilometers, but it's more likely around the city.
However, even in the city I was getting around 21-22 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which means the range was not much more than 300 kilometers. In comfort mode, switching to Eco, you have a chance of getting closer to that 400 Mercedes promises. A lot depends on the weather, your driving style, whether you park your car in a heated garage or out in the cold, whether or not you precondition the car, and so on.
The same goes for charging. The Mercedes-Benz EQA charges up to 100 kilowatts. The onboard charger is just 11 kilowatts, but that's still enough to charge full overnight if you have a powerful enough wall box. Charging from a regular home socket takes some 30 hours, but overnight you should regain about 100 kilometers range.
As far as rapid charging is concerned, according to Fastned charging network data, in optimum conditions the EQA can take even a bit more than 100 kilowatts, but that number drops below 100 around 60% state of charge. The last few percentage points it goes down below 50 kilowatts. Unless you really have to, it's not advisable to fast charge to full as it affects battery life. And it is a waste of time, yours as well as of the other EV drivers wanting to charge their cars. The batteries are liquid-cooled, which should help maintain charging speed.
I often get asked, how much does it cost to drive 100 kilometers in an EV? There's no good answer. You may charge at home for cheap, especially if you have some sort of renewable source of energy like solar or wind, and then you drive around town and use relatively little energy. However, if you drive on the motorway and you have to charge from a rapid charger in order to continue, then your 100 kilometers will cost you dearly, especially if you're not a client for a given network and you're using it as a guest. That's why you need to make your own calculations. If you travel a lot, an EV may not be for you, or it may make more sense to rent a regular car for those extra long trips once in a while, if the charging infrastructure along the route is not up to scratch, like here in Poland.
Speaking of charging, I noticed this in the A-Class PHEV review, and it's worth mentioning again. In order to unplug the car, I don't need to use the fob to unlock the doors. It's enough I have the key on me and there is a release button next to the charging port. This should be standard on all EVs, just like the spring-loaded flaps instead of cheapity-cheap plastic covers dangling on plastic straps. Prices of the Mercedes-Benz EQA start at €47,500 for the EQA 250, $4,000 more for the EQA 300, and the EQA 350 starts at €56,000. I think the EQA 300 is worth it for all-wheel drive and higher towing capacity. More performance you get out of the EQA 350 is, in my opinion, irrelevant, as this is hardly a Porsche Taycan. This test EQA 250 with options costs around €60,000.
I recently criticized cheaper and larger EVs which offer more range and faster charging than the EQA. But I like that the EQA doesn't pretend to be something that it's not. And I like it like I like the VW e-Golf and the Kia e-Niro. I prefer this approach to electrification rather than creating models which look the part but don't do much else. Perhaps with the exception of the BMW i3. And how do you like the Mercedes-Benz EQA? Let me know in the comment section below.
If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.